And so we'll go ahead and get started. So we're excited to have Drew Port, who is a TU alumnus, CIS, cybersecurity, and innovation and entrepreneurship, right, Drew?
Yep, that is correct.
So approaching his first year on his job. And so he's going to talk to some tips and tricks about that. You guys jump in with questions you may have. Again, this is casual. This is hopefully fun, but keep it real. Any burning questions you may have. We love that Drew volunteered to do our first one and really get these tips out. So Drew, I'm going to just turn over to you.
Awesome. And I know it's casual, but I did prepare a little slide deck, so I'll share that. We can run through that and then hop back into this format for some Q&A and chats. So let me know, are you all seeing this okay? Awesome. So if you missed Leonel's introduction, my name is Drew Port. I'm the Director of Operations at Rule 4 and excited to be talking to you today. Let's see, there we go. We'll run over just a brief introduction of kind of my background, what I'm doing here at Rule 4. I'll look at some numbers and then the timeline of year one on the job, talk about some of those key moments in there, some unspoken rules, and then turn it back for any questions. So a little bit about me is that I graduated from TU last year in 2019 with a major in computer information systems and minors in cybersecurity and innovation and entrepreneurship, which were a blast to be a part of. I moved out to Boulder, Colorado here, where I'm camping, climbing, skiing galore, just loving the outdoors. And that's, a big passion of mine is anything having to do with nature. And in isolation here during COVID, I've been an aspiring artist. I've been working on my colored pencil drawings and all kinds of fun stuff, which has been a blast to do something a little different than normal. And a bit of my background as far as employment goes, I've had a couple of new hire starts throughout my life. I originally started my own business in high school and ran that all the way through college. So I don't know if I'd technically be a new hire there, but definitely have some interesting experience with getting things up and going. I worked internships for startup companies as an independent contractor and learned what onboarding and getting going in a very independent, self-starting environment looks like. I did a large corporate internship while I was at TU, where I was working in a big environment with lots of moving parts and playing a very specific role. And then now I've just completed my first year here at Rule 4, and so have some insights about that as well. And a little bit about Rule 4 is we started September 17th in 2018, so we're actually just approaching our 2-year mark in a couple of months here, which is really exciting. We've got currently 8 engineers on our team, and we do cybersecurity consulting and technology consulting, and we're just a big family. We have a ton of fun. Our name actually comes from, if you've heard of him, Isaac Asimov, who is an author. He wrote I, Robot, and that was turned into a movie with Will Smith in it, which you might have heard of. But he had these 3 rules of all these things that artificial intelligence and robotics shouldn't do, how they shouldn't harm humanity, how they, these are the controls we need to put in place. And then a bit later, he came back and decided that was a bit narrow-minded and implemented this 4th rule, which is not only should it not do bad, there should be a more altruistic purpose to it. And there should be something from the get-go where we're trying to better humanity with technology. And so that's where our name came from. And our fox mascot is awesome. We love the foxes. They're these smart, cunning animals. They're really resilient. And we strive to, emulate the characteristics of a fox here, which is super fun. We call ourselves Foxes Move in Skulks. So we have a skulk and we, work out of our den, which is kind of fun. And, our den, the way we operate things here is we're really, really passionate about our local community, the environment, and how we can be involved in that. We're what's called a B Corporation, which is this really stringent certification that you can apply for and achieve. And it looks at everything from, how we compensate employees, how we structure our company, where we source our materials and all of our inventory for everything from food and supplies to equipment and everything from, and you're held to this standard. And, there's companies like Patagonia and other large companies who have embarked on that challenge and become B corporations as well. And we're 100% employee owned, which is really cool. So, the people who are making decisions about our company and the direction of it are the people who work here. We don't have outside investors and equity that have controlling interests and are making decisions without having them actually affect the decision maker. And we work really hard, but we also play really hard. As you see some of our fun photos, there's our team with the foxes. We built a massive Jeep replica out of food cans for a food drive in our office. We have going to Tube to Work Day here in Boulder, where we all, tube down the Boulder Creek to work one Monday morning, which was a blast. And we just have a really fun time here as a family. And all this works together with our mission of we want to build this organization that has a long-term effect outside of just what we're doing here. We want to have an employee first mindset where we're taking care of our own and then taking care of our clients. And it's been a blast the last 2 years here. We've gotten to work with some awesome clients. Some names you might recognize here. I tried to pick out a few that you might have heard of. But we get to touch every industry from, industrial IoT, wastewater, traffic systems, power plants, things like that, to really niche, unique industries like biomedical and protein research, to skiing and avalanche research. And somehow we have New York City is our client. So we get, all kinds of really fun environments to interact with and different situations we have to adjust to depending on those industries. So that's a little bit about us. And now kind of the overall topic of today is, what are we looking at with our first year on the job here? And I wanted to start with two really interesting numbers that we came across recently, which are a little bit jarring in my, young mindset here. Which are that in the first 45 days of employment, about 20% of new hires leave that company. And if you expand that out over 18 months, that number grows to closer to 50%. And now these numbers are not just your fresh out of college new hire. These are across all industries and across all job levels, from your fresh out of college new hire to your executive management and your C-suites, which is fascinating. And absolutely, there's a bunch of different components in there. There's the wrong skill set, maybe, or maybe there's not a competence that was expected. But a lot of it also has to do with this whole onboarding and integration component and culture fit. And that this first couple of days, months, year is not only a company feeling out, okay, who is this person and what are we investing in them? It's also your ability and your opportunity to evaluate whether or not that company is a fit for you. And so there's a lot of different factors that go into this, but it's something to be aware of, that finding the right fit is not quite as easy as we would like. So I thought I'd build out a little timeline based on kind of my experience here, starting with congrats, man. You just got a offer letter, you've signed it, you've put ink on paper. It's time to celebrate and share with your family and friends. That's super fun. And now it's kind of your time to prepare, looking at that position and saying, okay, what are the skills I need to brush up on. I know TU does an incredible job of preparing you for whatever career you're going into. But chances are somewhere between freshman and senior year, you've forgotten important material that will be applicable in whatever industry you're going into. And so now is your opportunity to kind of take a look at that, get some feedback from your new employer and say, hey, what do I need to be looking at? What material should I be refreshing on? Are there some projects that I can take on and get some practice in before getting into the real production environment? And that's a great opportunity to do that. Also, communication habits and expectations, it's never too early to set them. Showing your employer that, hey, I'm excited about where we're going, having a couple touches back and forth there prior to even starting is really important on just building that relationship and getting them kind of a feel for who you are, how you communicate, and what's going on. And then third, have a blast. You've got this unique time in your life where you've wrapped up college, hopefully, and you're about to start a job. You have your whole life to work now. Take that summer or go on a fun trip or do something, enjoy that time you have. Super important. And communicate that too. If you're going to go on a 2-month trip to the middle of Morocco with no cell phone service, it'd be really wise to drop your employer a message and say, hey, just so you know, prior to starting, I've got this trip lined up. If you don't hear from me or you're trying to get a hold of me, kind of this is the situation. And you'd be surprised at how many people that kind of slips their mind. And it just isn't a great first foot out when communicating. So now that you've started your first week on the job, I kind of broke this down into 3 components, which are, this is your time to establish your patterns and expectations. This is where you're going to be, setting the stage for what this employer is going to expect from you. And so, it's a good opportunity to really think through what you want your reputation to be and base your actions and how you interact with people off of that. This is probably a time to prioritize, going the extra mile. We'd like to think that that's going to be something you do for the rest of your life, is going the extra mile. But if you can show that you're willing to really dig in and you are putting in the effort to get integrated and prioritize that new position, it's going to go a long way. Recognizing that, there will be times later on where you're going to obviously choose to prioritize your family, your hobbies, your, fun activities over work and maintain, a work-life balance. But probably the first week on the job is where you want to be prioritizing everything that involves getting integrated and showing who you are and what kind of worker you are. And then also, I said we really want to invest. And I think, as you've all experienced with college, when you start somewhere new, you have all these new people and relationships, and it's going to take time to build those relationships and get comfortable. And so starting that first week of really trying to, get to know your team and let them get to know you is going to be crucial. So you've made it through the first week, and now we're looking at maybe a month timeline. And looking back at those numbers, we're already saying that about 20% of new hires have either themselves decided it's a wrong fit or the company has decided it's a wrong fit. Let's assume that you believe this company is a fit, you're excited to be there, and you're not trying to look elsewhere. If that's the case, really, it boils down to these 3 things, I think, which are be hungry, be humble, and be smart. I think these are 3 key areas that employers are looking for in a new hire. It's a hunger that you guys are excited about what you're doing, you're excited to grow, you're excited to learn, and you're willing to not only, show that excitement, you're putting in the actions and the effort behind it. And really showing them that you're here to make an impact. along with that, though, we have to be really humble. We are fresh out of college and we don't know everything. And we need to be able to own up to that and say, hey, I don't know this thing. I don't know how to do this, and know how to ask for help. It doesn't work out well if you blindly trudge forward without knowing what you're doing. And so, yeah, be quick to reach out to people and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. And then be smart. I'm not talking about intellect here. I'm talking more about the soft smartness, the soft skills of how to read an environment, how to read a room, knowing when it is appropriate to, ping someone again, or if they're having a busy day, maybe you hold off, or just the social cues and culture and understanding your company environment. And I think if those three things are taken care of, from the employer's perspective, they're going to be really excited to keep investing in you and training you up and integrating you into the team. So then you've made it through the gauntlet of that first month. You and your employer are like, hey, we're vibing. It's a great fit. Now you can, really take some responsibility. Now you want to be reaching out and saying, okay, how can I take on responsibility in an area I'm passionate about? How can I look at someone's plate and say, man, you look pretty busy. What does it look like for me to take this thing off your plate and run with it? Knowing that along the way, as you're taking all this responsibility, you're going to be messing up. You're going to make mistakes. But hopefully in that initial team building and integration, you've built trust with your employer to where they know that you're going to make mistakes. And in doing that, you're not worried about your job security. You're not worried about impressions there. But you know that it's being perceived from a place of, hey, this person's really wanting to invest in what they're doing, take risks, and from those mistakes, we're going to grow. We're going to learn. We're going to become better team members, employees, friends, all of it. And then, going on from there, just as I'm about to reach on Monday 1 year, I think it's an awesome opportunity to just look back and say, okay, where did I start? Where am I now? Evaluate those growth opportunities and what you've learned, and then plan a trajectory going forward. Where is my career going to take me? What things do I want to improve on? And then involve your employer in that. Share that plan with them or work with them to build that plan and say, okay, like we're in this together. Where are we going? And, if there's that mutual trust and appreciation, they're going to want to invest in you and develop you. And so that's a neat partnership to have. And so those are some of the more milestone items I kind of came up with. But in the original introduction, Lionel mentioned these unspoken rules. So I thought I'd build a little pyramid here of starting with foundational rules that hopefully at this point in your life, no one actually needs to tell you these, but I thought I'd include them just in case. Timeliness is absolutely critical. Even at relaxed companies where, you're kind of operating on a new timeline, being prompt is always going to come across as way better than being late. If you're going to be late to something, make sure you communicate it, and really try and prioritize. If you're in a client-facing environment, prioritizing client timelines over your internal timelines is a really key thing. If you're working at a company where, all of your team members are working on really tight schedules, it's also a big deal with just respecting each other's time and making sure you're honoring that. If you're working in non-COVID times and you're actually going to the office, hygiene and dress is really important. Make sure that you're assessing the situation appropriately, and if you're going to represent your company at something, are you representing them well with your appearance and how you look? And then I threw this one on here, which is I think no matter what in our development and onboarding in first year, we are going to make mistakes. We're going to have learning moments, but those aren't really things we should feel threatened by. And so, owning up to mistakes, being honest, having a story that you stick to is really important. And it should be something that you really emphasize when you're working, and you want to work with integrity. And so I think those are three foundational things that most people would agree on. Some expectations that might be a little more ambiguous, or you might know them but not believe them or think they're true for yourself, is that, hey, we do not know everything we're doing. Our employers know this. They are not hiring someone out of college expecting them to be the top performing guru at whatever they're doing. They know you're going to need help. They know you're not going to have all the information. And so don't be afraid to speak up about that. I know personally, I have this sentiment of, oh, if I can just do it on my own and show that I've got it, it'll go a long way. But sometimes that just gets you in a sticky situation when the reality is you don't, or you're in over your head and you need your team to help you out. Something that's been really interesting is that plans change on the fly. You'll go into a project with one timeline, one plan, one budget, and you're going to do your darnest to, stick to that. But in an instant, everything could change. And at that point, if it's on your end, it might feel like, oh, shoot, this thing happened and I'm no longer on track or on plan. And you might feel like that could be your fault or something. But that's just the reality in the business world. And you need to be able to communicate that and speak up and say, hey, new data just entered the pipeline. This is what it means. How do we rebase? How do we replan and reorient to get to our end goal? And then in a similar tone, if something, you're working on a project with someone else and something doesn't seem right, or it's going to throw things way off, speak up about it. Don't think that the plan is authority. Be able to adjust, be able to say, hey, maybe we should do this differently, or this new information means that something has changed. And then on top, some considerations that I think are unspoken are, I called it balanceception. There's this touted concept of work-life balance that so many companies throw out right now, and absolutely is important to just your health as a human. And, it does no one good to work 24/7, 7 days a week. However, in your first weeks, months, year, this is kind of you building your reputation on what kind of employee you are. And so there probably should be some consideration on how you prioritize work in that season. Absolutely play hard and take the time you need for yourself, but also consider that the team you're with and the people who you're working for have spent probably many, many more years than you already building up their careers and building up kind of where they're at. I look at my team, and I think out of our team of 7 engineers, there's over 100 combined years of cybersecurity consulting experience. And I contribute to date less than 1 year of that. And so it's just kind of putting in perspective that, there is going to be some legwork that you've got to put in initially to build up kind of your history, your experience, your portfolio. This is a little interesting one, which is, schedules are really tight and people are really busy. At the same time, you're integrating and onboarding and your company's investing in you and making time for you. There's also a balance you need to find of, when you need to give some space to people. When you ask a question and don't get feedback right away or an answer right away, how do you find that balance of between pestering and between, genuine they're busy, things get dropped, and they need a reminder. And that's something that's hard to do and takes some practice and some of those more smart skills of feeling out a room, feeling out a person's availability. And then I threw this one on here. Professionalism doesn't mean giving up your personality. I think myself and other people I've talked to have this mindset of, once I get in the working environment or in a professional situation, I need to be all business and operate a certain way. And I think that's not necessarily true. While there totally are times where that's required and situations that call for it, so much of what makes a fun work environment, awesome relationships, and trust building happen is, being able to show yourself and your personality and engage with your team members, your clients, everyone, in a way that shows authenticity. So maybe consider what it looks like to bring your personality and who you are to the workplace in a fun way that you get to feel known by your team. And I think that is all I have. So with that, I'd love to open up for any questions, thoughts, comments, anything you want to hear more about. Really, anything's on the table.
I would just like to say, Drew, first, thank you. And your last point you made about professionalism doesn't mean you have to give up your personality, I think resonated with me. And I've been working for like 16 years, just how like going through, it's like sometimes, yes, there's situations that call for it, but your uniqueness and your personality brings a lot to the workplace. So thank you for that. I love the pyramid of unspoken rules. I like that. Might be stealing it. So thank you so much for that. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute and jump in.
I have a question for you, Drew. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Okay. You mentioned, it's pretty obvious, like a lot of people don't make it long as a new hire. And so my question is, do you have an opinion on whether it's better to like be transparent and communicate with new hires, or even as a new hire communicating with your employer, let's do a trial period? Or do you think it's best to just hope for the best and hope everything like works out and you stay forever?
Yeah, I think so. Something we kind of practice here is, a trial period may sound kind of intimidating or like you're walking on thin ice. However, I think, communicating an expectation of, that first month especially, I think pretty quickly in a month whether or not there's a fit or not. And I think that 18-month statistic often comes from people not making decisions soon enough because they're hesitating or afraid to do that. But I think a trial period, hey, we want you to feel us out and we're feeling you out, is an awesome opportunity. A lot of companies.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of one company, Zappos, and we do something similar, operates with this model of there's kind of that trial period, and then at the end of it, they actually offer essentially a bonus to say, hey, if we're not a fit, take this money that'll get you through the next 2 or 3 months and go find another place to work. Don't stay on here because we're going to be investing in you if you're saying you want to be here.
Thank you.
So my question was, so you said that you had like graduated from TU and then moved over to Colorado. For me, that's something that I've kind of been thinking about, is like whether or not I'm going to stay in Tulsa like to work. And so what kind of advice or like guidance would you give on like going somewhere else, like moving away to find a job like after college?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing there is it is really hard to fight the massive pile of online application competitors. If you're just looking for positions or opportunities online and applying through those channels, it's going to be difficult. I think the best thing you can do to create opportunity for yourself is to reach out and start networking, take a trip somewhere and start sitting down with people for coffee and actually being present in that location you want to go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, you did just that. I remember when you were a student, you sent me an email and said, I'm headed to Colorado. Do you know any people I can meet with? And we came up with the names, and you were scheduling coffees up until, I think, from the time you landed to when you got back on a plane. And so, and it worked out great for you. So that's great advice. Yep. I remember you doing that. Total side note too, Drew, whose dog is that in the background? I saw a
Oh, that's Daisy. She's a cutie. She loves to come skiing with us. She'll run up on the mountain. She's a blast. That's Dan's dog.
Okay. What other questions do you all have?
Hi, Drew.
Hey, Steve.